The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Off in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh. Got my hustle on, no imitation of that. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throbbing my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too evil and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty. Shake!
First Week Podcast, recording this Sunday evening, November 2nd, 2025. Not a very common thing you see here, recording on a weekend. I do tend to avoid that, but sometimes we got to do what we got to do. We have a lot to get to on the show today as I have to fix. Oh my God, my camera's all messed up right now. That's a little, I didn't like that. I didn't want that happening there. Okay, there we go. All right, we got a lot to get to today on the show. It won't be a long one actually though, but we're going to talk about, of course, we get my New York Giants at the halfway point of the year now. They've now officially reached the halfway point of the year and season going backwards again. Also, my very early week 9 observations. Normally I do this on the Tuesday show, but we may not be able to record a solo episode on Tuesday due to my schedule that day. So we'll get it in now early. So we're recording this show before the Sunday night game and before, obviously, the Monday night game. So my observations will not include those two games. And if things were to come out of those games that I would want to talk about, probably I'll discuss that. If anything big comes out of those games, I'll probably discuss that probably on the Friday show. If we do a Friday show, of course, this week, of course, and the Dodgers go back to back. I'll talk to you why, and to give my reaction to the World Series and what a classic World Series. And I know a lot of people saying that it's the greatest World Series of all time, and I'll be honest with you, it was pretty damn good. I have a hard time finding many that are better than the one we saw this year, but we get to all that in just a second. But I want to talk to you guys about something real quick before we get to some of the sports stuff here on the show. It's been a lot on my mind lately on a personal level in terms of my passions. It starts off with something that my friend, one of my coworkers said. It's funny, when I was at work the other day, talking to a friend of mine, we're talking about sports and all that stuff. And another coworker came out, and as we're talking about sports, says, she goes, "Is that all you guys talk about sports? Is that all you guys talk about sports?" And I'm like, "No, not really. In fact, you know me well," which she's not really like she's a friend, but she's most of an acquaintance though. But she I told her that like, if you knew me well, you know that I'm very much passionate about music, about politics, about my family. Sports is one of those things we have to talk. But we do I do like to talk about sports, but it's not my number one passion. It's music. Last week, as I told you guys, I went to see one of my favorite bands in the world, Fear Factory, in concert last week, and it was a phenomenal show. I went to the venue where I many times over have played in over the course of the last 20-something years in a band, when I was in the band at the time. And it brought a lot of memories. A lot of things also too, when being at that concert, I ran into a lot of old friends of mine. And some of those friends actually were old musicians of mine. Old musicians, rather, I used to jam with back in the day. So being there in there and seeing people in that environment, it triggered something. It triggered something for me. I think I've been teasing this off and on for the last year or so, but I think it really hit me at that concert that I really, really miss playing music. I really miss playing in the band. Now, the problem with me is that as much as I want to do music again, it's about finding the right fit. Find the right guys that are playing the music you want to do. And in my case, for a long time, I wanted to get out of the metal genre. I wanted to go back to doing like maybe softer rock or something more, little more mainstream, a little more simple. But every time I get, the urge to do it, there's nothing there that really moves me. Like my thing is metal. I love playing hard rock, heavy metal. That's just my passion. When it comes to music, like as much as I wouldn't mind playing in a band that sounds like Incubus or a band that sounds like, Creed, what to call that. It's just not my thing. Like I like listening to it, but to be in a band, I just love heavy music. That is my passion. So, in lieu of that, if I'm going to do this, I need to find the right mix of musicians and people I can work with and vibe with. But also, too, I haven't done this medium in so long. I mean, I was not married at the time. Certainly didn't have kids at the time. So if I'm going to do this again, it's going to be something that I can dive myself into and really have time for. And, and here's the pros and cons. Now, the pros, of course, is getting back into it, doing music again, have my kids see me for the first time play music, which they all support. My wife even supports it. It's giving me something else I can lean on outside of podcasting, outside of my family. The con, but I have to keep 100 here. I do think the cons outweigh the pros in some sense, because here's the one issue. Okay, I do a band. Will I have time for a band? And then only have time for a band, we'll have time to practice. And does the time allotted fit the schedule I have at home? Because as you guys know, here at home, our schedule is very tight as is. Okay, anything we do involves we need to get babysitters involved. Okay, and we try to, as much as possible, to not rely on other people to watch our kids, and that's an issue. Number two, as I revealed on the show last week too, also, my wife is planning on going back to school next year. That is something that she has said that she wants to do. And I support that. And if she goes to school, that's even less time now I have now to do this. So, and money on top of that too, also, because being in a band, we have to rent out studio time to record, studio time to practice, unless whoever band or people I decided to play with, unless they have a garage or something to play in. Most of the time, to find a way to jam, you have to be in a studio. I can't do it in my garage, because in my garage, I'm living in a community where it would be way too loud to have a band set up here. So it's a lot of things I have to consider. And honestly, sitting here and really writing it out, the cons really do outweigh the pros. It really does. Because of the fact, and when I say cons, it's not that it's bad. It's just that there are things that are much more important that may get in the way to making this happen. See, podcasting is different. I'm at home. I'm in my studio. I'm at home. My kids are going to sleep. I can record anytime I want to now. My kids are a little older now, so even when they're awake, I can record if I want to. So I have that time. I have that opportunity to do this medium much easier. And to be real, not to sound selfish here, but it's mine. So therefore, I work on my schedule. I work on based on how my lifestyle works out. So it's easier that way. But to do a band that's shared by other members, it is tough. I mean, dude, it was tough even back then in the 2000s when I didn't have a wife and kids. And we still had to work around people's schedules and stuff of that nature. It's worse now. I'm 45 years old. And there's another part too also I think people not considering, and myself have to consider, is the physical part. Like, I'm not doing well health-wise as I was 20 years ago. I'm not as fit as I used to be. My neck, because when I was playing back in the day, I would headbang. My neck, I have osteoarthritis, not osteoporosis, osteoarthritis in my neck. So every so often I get pains in my neck. Not cool. And I know that'll be an issue. Also, I get, because the job I do also too, especially, I get so much easier. So can I hold up? Because that kind of music also too, when you're playing it, it's very physical. It's very, very physical. And by the way, when I perform on stage too, also especially, I don't just stand there and play. I move around. So that's another layer. So there's a lot of things I got to consider. So do I want to do this? Yes. Am I going to try to make this happen? Possibly. But is it going to be easy? Hell no. It's not going to be easy. But as I said, I'll keep you guys updated about where I'm at on this journey. If I decide to get back into it, I want to do it. but it ain't gonna be easy. So that's all I'll say about that. All right, we have now reached the halfway point for New York Giants this year. They are now 2-7 of the season. They lost today once again to the Niners, 34-24. I didn't have a chance to watch the entire game because I had red zone. I don't have the ticket, and therefore that game was not regional here for us. So, now we're gonna do midterms on the Tuesday show with Kyle Nash, student report. We're planning on doing midterms for each team in the league. That's the reason why I'm may not be able to do a solo show because I'm limited on time, and the little time I have, I want to make sure I record with Kyle that day. But I will talk about the New York Giants on my end. It's been a very weird season because there was some expectations though, but of course Jackson Thorpe comes in late, and I think week 4. Start the year Russell Wilson, and that was not really well. I mean, he had a really great week 2 against Dallas, but other than that, a lot of games from the Giants got away. They've been competitive most of the year, but 2-7 is 2-7, bro. I'm giving them a C- so far because for me, the issue for me, the number one part for me now is seeing Jackson Dart develop. That's all I care about is development Jackson Dart. In fact, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a fan of tanking, but at the same time, I would not mind this team going after another draft pick, high draft pick rather, going to next year. But I'm getting worried now because it's starting to feel like the season now is slipping away. Not in terms of winning the playoffs, but in terms of whether or not Brian Daboll is losing the team. Like the Scottaboo injury last week, Cam Scottaboo injury last week in Philadelphia might have actually not done more than just hurt the team in terms of not having a great player there, but also derailed the passion for the rest of the year. Because one of the things you realize, especially when Jackson Dart came in alignment week 4, is that there was a sense of urgency and a sense of like fire and excitement for this team. And Scottaboo and Dart, what they were doing, add to that. He gets hurt last week, and then everything else has gone flat since then. So the thing is, I don't want Brian Daboll to lose his job. Okay, I don't want to lose his job. But I feel like now, if he starts losing the team the second half of the year, that may very well happen. If he loses the team from this point on, his job is certainly in jeopardy. Now, having said that, the development of Dart has been fantastic, and Brian Daboll deserves credit for that. So it would behoove the Giants to stick it out with the coach another year as the quarterback is getting better. He chose a quarterback. The quarterback he chose is playing well. Okay? There are games they should have won this year. Obviously, the Cowboys game week 2 should have won. Obviously, the fucking Denver game they should have won 2 weeks ago. And then even, I haven't said the Saints game they lost should have won. There are games in there that should have won. So they've been competitive. Look, here's the bottom line. If they're going to make some moves, first and foremost, they need to fire Shane Bowen, defensive coordinator. He's got to go. He's got to go. He's been terrible this year. That Denver loss alone pinned on him. Okay? And here's the bottom line. Jackson Dart's still playing well. He played okay today for the most part. No picks, fairly efficient today. He's not the issue. He's working with less. He doesn't have any receivers to throw to. Scottaboo now, his best friend on his team is now gone for the year. He has no weapons to work with at this point now. He has nothing to work with. He ain't the issue. So I hope the New York Giants brass are able to be patient and stay the course. You retool, you need to retool. The defense fell apart this week. I don't know what happened to defense. I think the fire's gone there too also. So, but like I said, the whole priority for this team moving forward for the rest of this year is development of Jackson Dart. And that, again, I think that is going to save Daboll's job ultimately here. And the fans need to relax. I know the fans are like, we're trying to fire Daboll. Okay, you fire Daboll, who are you going to get? Who are you going to get? Are you going to call for Bill Belichick in North Carolina? Who are you going to get? Because one thing I will say, changing coaches all the time, often, does not work. You want to know why? Because the Giants have been doing it for the last fucking 8-9 years now. Since Tom Coughlin, they've had what? Ben McAdoo, Pat Shurmur, Joe Judge, and I know I'm missing somebody in there. I know I'm missing somebody in there. Okay, another coach in there. Okay? They've had so many coaches in the last 8 years. Like, it doesn't work. Look at the Cleveland Browns for years. And prior to now, Kevin Stefanski, who knows if he loses his job at the end of the year. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't work. It doesn't work by moving coaches every so often. So stay the course another year. You have the quarterback rather. Build from there, moving forward. And if next year they flop, then you fire the coach. Okay, but not this year, in my opinion. All right. So Rest of week 9. Again, this is recording this on a Sunday before Sunday football, before Monday football. So these observations are gonna count minus those 2 games. First observation week. Here's the deal: Buffalo beats Kansas City. That was cute, Buffalo. It was cute, and no one's surprised. I picked you guys. Nearly the entire country surprised. Picked you guys to win. But here's the bottom line: beating when it matters in January. It doesn't matter because guess what? You guys always beat the Kansas City in during the regular season. You guys always beat the Kansas City Chiefs during the year. It's what, the 5th straight year you beating them? 4th straight year you beating them before January. And now what? Even January doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? So nothing surprise here. Now I will say to Casey's if it's Buffalo here, it was a must win in terms of their perception and whatnot. But it was also a must-win for Kansas City because their schedule. Now, having said that, I think Case will be fine because, again, Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid, they find a way to get the job done. And they're probably, those games you're worried about, they're probably going to win those games anyway. They play the Colts. Then they play the Broncos next week. And to be honest with you, would it shock if you win both those games? No. In fact, would I pick both those games? Probably yes. Because that's what the Chiefs do. Until they are dead and buried, I'm not counting them out. Bottom line, I'm not doing it. So, picking the Colts. Now is where I'll start judging the Colts harshly, okay? You lost the game in Pittsburgh, which, by the way, I picked the Steelers to win the game anyway, so I'm not surprised this happened, okay? But now is where this is where now you have all the hype. The Colts best team in football for the first 8 weeks of the year. Okay, now you're 7-2, okay? Now what? You lost the game. Do things derail? Daniel Jones played 3 turnovers, okay? He had 3 all year, okay? Does he derail now going forward? Okay, look, this is a very good team. But there's still a lot of doubt out there on this team about whether or not they're a real Super contender. This is where we judge you guys now. Can you bounce back? See, even though the Chiefs have 4 losses, here's why I don't doubt the Chiefs. They have the history to prove it. They have the history and longevity to say, look, you know what? They deserve the benefit of the doubt. The Colts, you just got here, bro. You just got here, bro. Okay, so you have to earn your way and earn my respect, big picture. So we'll see in the next couple weeks if they can turn things around. The Panthers won in Green Bay. Whew. Is it time to trust the Carolina Panthers now? They're 5-4, bro. They're 5-4. We're now in November, and they have a winning record. Look, I don't think they're in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to the playoffs at all. I already told you guys on the Friday episode that the NFC play picture seems very defined. You know, Philly, Rams, Bucks, Lions, tough loss to the Lions today. Still Lions, Packers, they stunk up John against Carolina today. Maybe San Francisco, maybe Seattle. Panthers? No, I'm not buying it, but am I really impressed with how they played this year despite all the doubt? Yeah, I'm very impressed. And another opposition here too also. There are a few teams I trust now going forward. If I'm building the bubble, Super Bowls, obviously the bubble is pretty big. But if I'm building the teams I actually trust, there are maybe 2 or 3. The Eagles, of course, being 1, despite them looking sluggish at times. I'm still saying the Chiefs because they're the Chiefs. And then you have okay, I'm gonna say something really crazy here, but I still, at least to get to the second round of playoffs and maybe even beyond, I'll still say the Ravens. I think they're back. I think, look, I know they're two games back in the win column from the wild card. We have a whole year, half a year left to go. You're not trusting the Jaguars to hold that spot down, right? Come on now. Plus, I think the Ravens win the division anyway. I don't care if the Steelers won the game today against the Colts. I still trust the Ravens here. And again, they still played twice this year. So I trust them. So yeah, Ravens still trust them. I don't trust the Packers. I somewhat trust the Lions, but that was a rough loss today. I trust the Rams. I trust the Eagles. You know what? I trust the Bucks. I do. The Pats, I'm not there yet. The Bills, I'm kind of doing the playoffs. Like I said, that's it for me, really. I don't trust the Denver Broncos. I mean, that's a weird-ass team. They're 7-2, but that would look great. But at the same time, they're winning games the way you're supposed to in close games. Anyway, certainly against bad teams, but it doesn't matter. You win, you win. And this year alone, unless you're losing to the Saints or the Titans or the Dolphins, maybe, any team is liable to beating you. So we can't use that logic also too. So those are my early weeknight observations, on a Sunday, which I normally do on a Tuesday. But as you guys know, I may not be able to do a solo show on Tuesday. And if I can't do that, then we'll just let it lie. All right, finally, get out of here. The Dodgers go back to back. I'll tell you, I watched that game last night, but I was fighting sleep the entire time. I was like half asleep. I was on my bed with my phone with the game on. I kept going in and out. I missed the bottom of the 11th inning. I mean, I saw the Will Smith home run in the top of the 11th. Then I saw the last out that the Dodgers got before they won it. They got it right on Yamamoto, man. MVP. We talk about Shohei and this and that, but Yamamoto, great game 2. Solid game 6. Then came in last night to close out and to hold the fort down. He was right at MVP. Dude, I am so heartbroken for Blue Jays fans. I really am, because after game 3, I thought they were buried, and then game 4, game 5 in LA, they blew them out. They blew out the Dodgers in game 4 and 5. Okay, and then you think, okay, well, you just win one game on home and you're good. And game 6, it always came back and won. And in game 7, you had to lead most of the game. I hate it. I hate the Dodgers. You guys know that. I hate the Dodgers. Bottom 3 worst teams in baseball for me. Well, it has been for years. Phillies, Dodgers, and Yankees. Okay, but they found a way to win. Stack roster aside, yeah. And I'm a little annoyed now seeing all my Dodger friends online talking shit. Like, bro, you're supposed to do this, bro. With that roster, you're supposed to do this. Okay, the very fact that you won 7 games is a problem. Okay, I know it's but Toronto had a bullpen advantage. I don't give a shit. You guys have the best roster in the history of baseball. Don't give me that shit. Okay, and here's the bottom line: you'll likely repeat next year too. Also, you know why? I don't see anybody challenge you guys. Yeah, Milwaukee was cute this year, but what? They got swept by the Dodgers earlier. Okay, in LCS. The Phillies are getting older. The Mets, I don't trust the Mets. Who you trust in the American League to beat them? Toronto's a good team, but I don't know if they can do this again. The Yankees not going to compete with the Dodgers here, and there's really no big move to be made this year that's going to tilt the conversation. Really, I mean, Pete Alonso may go somewhere, but does he tilt the conversation to? I mean, if he goes to Toronto, maybe I don't know. I don't see any big names in the market this year that's going to tilt the conversation like a Juan Soto did, entering this year. And who's to say they don't even they even add to this roster? Because odds are they probably will. You know why? Because that's what they've done. They won it last year and they added Blake Snell to the roster. Crying out loud. Who's to say they get somebody else on a bargain? It's annoying, man. It's annoying, but you know what? It's what it is. The Dodgers win the World Series back to back, and that's just it. It is what it is. So that is it for me on this podcast. Once again, dated November 2nd, 2025. I am on X at EJ Christian 7. Earnestly podcast across all podcast catchers, and especially on the video side, the YouTube page at youtube.com/Earnest Christian. Sorry about that. youtube.com/@EarnestSpeakPod. Sorry about that. I keep forgetting it's not my name anymore. It's the podcast name. As well as TikTok at Earnestly Pod on TikTok and on Instagram as well too. Until the next time we see you guys, which will probably be on Tuesday. Love you guys. Take care.